Welcome into the channel, everyone. This is Michael Tharp, EDU. It starts with you. Is critical theory, social emotional learning, Marxism that is being taught in America's K through 12 education? The answer is emphatic yes, and I'm going to show you today with irrefutable proof that it is. And you don't have to take my word for it. I'm going to use their own words, their own language, their own writing to show you this. And why this concerns me is that I have this confirmed from the superintendent of Greenville that they will be using second step in the elementary. So I'm going to start with that specific program to make the citizens of Greenville and the board aware of what they are allowing into the schools. So let's get right into it. If you guys appreciate what I'm doing, the education, the videos I'm bringing, please like the video, give me a comment down below, and share this with as many people as possible. Subscribe to the channel so you get the upcoming videos. So second step. All right, let's see what this is about. So let's scroll down here a little bit. Of course, it's social emotional learning. And of course, there's lots of things on the surface that look really good. But again, we have this diversity, equity, and inclusion that I believe is problematic. And we're going to kind of see why that is. So let's see right here, we have lessons and media included in the digital program were created recently and published in 2021. The program was built in close consultation with culturally responsive teaching advisors. Now, what is that? Let's find that out. We will definitely get to that. Let's look right here at culturally relevant teaching or responsive teaching. Is a pedagogy grounded in teachers' practice of cultural competence or skills at teaching in cross-cultural and multicultural setting, which of course sounds all great. All right, but let's see where it came from. Culturally relevant teaching was made popular by Dr. Gloria Ladson-Billings in the early 90s. The term she created, so again guys, think about this. This was just created in the 90s, and it's already basically been accepted as doctrine. Culturally relevant pedagogy can also be found in the literature as culturally appropriate, culturally congruent, culturally responsive, culturally compatible. Oh look, I don't know if I'm related to him or not, probably not. Ladson-Billings also provided some clarification between critical and culturally relevant pedagogy, with the difference being that culturally relevant pedagogy urges collective action grounded in cultural understanding, experiences, and ways of knowing the world. This has become more widely known and accepted in the education field. Where else did I want to talk about? All right, here it is. Banks' fourth and fifth dimensions are the perfect example of culturally relevant teaching. Teachers who achieve these dimensions and thus fully realize the impact of culturally relevant teaching cherish learners who question, seek answers through inquiry, and embrace a mindset of social justice. And we'll talk about what that is later. All of which are key components of constructivism. And so we can come here, liberating, again, that's another Marxist term. Culturally responsive teachers liberate students. Yes, so this is it. And so I just wanted to show you guys this, right? People have issues with Wikipedia, but, it's just the easiest place to show you guys what this stuff is. So again, they're citing this as like the reason that we're doing this, right? And what happens when you look at a lot of these educational articles that are written in support of critical theory or critical relevant teaching, whatever, they're very sparse on evidence that it works. So even in this one, it says, it describes 3 successful teachers of African American students in 2 restructuring schools, discussing ways in which their practices and outlook supported the success of otherwise low-achieving students, and describes how they diverged from their school's norms. The paper analyzes why, despite their exemplary practice, each of these African American teachers, for different reasons, had limited influence on his or her school's reform agenda. So basically, nothing really changed, but we're going to go ahead and keep pretending that this works. And then again, the word transformative. And I wanted to also look at, as you can see here, what Greenville has chosen in second step. Readily admits they are pushing the transformative SEL. And as I've done more research on this, I found a teacher that used to actually teach what they called, I don't know if it's classic or traditional SEL. That was actually not bad, but it has been Marxified. It is now why it's called transformative SEL. So I wanted to know, I was kind of wondering like if the district would try to claim they were teaching the old SEL, but now we have verified proof they are not. They are teaching the new Marxist transformative SEL. And you can go through here and see, this is anti-racism. Again, sounds good, but it's Marxism. Anti-racism is racism. And, you can look at this book, looks very, very radical. All right, so let's try to understand who is Gloria Ladson-Billing. So she's a pedagogical theorist and teacher educator. The part I wanted to focus on. So let's just look at her books. Going back to 1995, Towards a Critical Race Theory in Education, one of the first ones in the book. And I have this pulled up right here. This is Gloria Ladson-Billing, Critical Race Theory in Education. This is a selection of all her journals. This important volume brings together key writings from one of the most influential education scholars of our time. In this collection of her seminal essays on critical race theory, Gloria Ladson-Billing seeks to clear up some of the confusion and misconceptions. Up to the present, this book discloses both a personal and intellectual history of CRT in education. So again, Towards a Critical Race Theory in Education, critical race theory, critical race theory and the post-racial imaginary. So this lady is the leading proponent of critical race theory. She then, of course, created culturally relevant teaching to just bring critical theory, Marxism, into the education field. And so there it is. That's what it is. And we can even go, this is her book, one of her first books, The Dream Keepers. And I just want to show you how critical theory operates. So right here she says, because of my decision to write in this way, or she goes, I'm going to break the current classroom practices. Because of my decision to write in this way, I break at least two scholarly conventions. First, I diminish the primacy of objectivity because there's no objective truth in critical theory. As I write both of my own life and memories as an African American student and of the lives and experiences of this group of affected teachers. So the only thing that matters is a lived story. Forget facts, logic, and reason. It's just about emotions and people's stories. Second, I write in a style that may be seen as methodologically messy as I discuss issues at both the classroom level and the school level. I do this because it is an opportunity to reinforce the fluidity and connection between the individual and the group in which teachers and students do their work. I could have chosen to write this book in the dominant scholarly tradition, statement of the problem, review of literature, methodology, data collection, analysis, and implications for further research. But who needs that, right? It's just, it sounds good, it feels good, it's a great story. If it moves you, then it works. Indeed, this is what I was trained to do. But that tradition rejects my necessary subjectivity. So again, we're not dealing with anything objective. It is now subjective based on their feelings. Thus, I chose to integrate my scholarly tools with my knowledge of my culture and my personal experiences because that's all that matters. And we can come down here when it talks about the author. Of course, she's from the University of Wisconsin, when in 1989, where critical race theory was born. And it says right here, practices of teachers who are successful with African American students. She also investigates critical race theory applications to education. Now, the other thing I just want you guys to understand is it's not that Marxism was just put into education. Education became Marxist going back to the 60s. And the leading guy that did this was Paulo Freire in his book, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And you can see here, this is basically standard reading for every teacher. I think I missed it because I went to a private university, So I was not assigned this book when I was in college, but it's pretty much like standard. If you're going to be a teacher, you're going to read this. It's your Bible. It's the third most cited book of the social sciences in 2016, according to Google Scholar. So, political party, Workers' Party, which is just a communist party. It talks here, Gramsci is a huge Marxist, Gutierrez is a huge Marxist, Hegel, Marxist, Herbert Marcuse, huge Marxist, Karl Marx, obviously the grandfather of it all. Paulo Freire contributed a philosophy of education which blended classical approaches stemming from Plato and modern Marxist, post-Marxist, and anti-colonial thinkers. So Paulo Freire, Marxist, who Marxified the education system in America. And so then again, we have documented in the castle, in the second step, their goal is to teach social justice, to make social justice advocates. So what is social justice? Kind of originally had some religious beginnings, but it was definitely hijacked and changed. Again, remember, Marxists share your dictionary, but not your definition. So here we have social justice movements. Several movements are working to achieve social justice in society. And then we have liberation theology. And it says it's a movement in Christian theology which conveys the teaching of Jesus Christ. But down here it says Catholic faith and Christianity through the eyes of the poor, and by detractors as Christianity perverted by Marxism and communism. So the term was coined by a Peruvian priest, Gutierrez, who was a Marxist, who wrote one of the movement's most famous books, A Theology of Liberation, in 1971. According to Sarah Klebe, Marx would surely take issue, she writes, with the appropriation of his works in a religious text. There is no way to reconcile Marx's views of religion with those of Gutierrez. They are simply incompatible. Despite this, in terms of their understanding of the necessity of a just and righteous world and the nearly inevitable obstructions along such a path, the two have much in common, and particularly in the first edition of A Theology of Liberation, the use of Marxian theory is quite evident. So I don't know how much more clear it can get. And I would argue, and a lot of people are arguing now, that critical theory is actually a religion, if you think about it. That's a whole other video for a whole other topic. But essentially, what we're allowing is children to be indoctrinated into a Marxist religion at school all day long in every subject. That's what social emotional learning does. And the last one, let's just look a little more at critical theory and what actually it does. Again, CRT draws from the work of thinkers as Gramsci. I don't know about Truth and Douglas. Dubois was definitely one of the first critical theorists. Black Power, Chicano, radical feminist movements. And as we can see, academic critics of CRT argue it's based on storytelling instead of evidence and reason, which it is. It rejects truth and merit, which it does, and opposes liberalism, which it does. Since 2020, conservative U.S. lawmakers have sought to ban or restrict the instruction of CRT along with other anti-racism education, which again is racist, even though it says it's anti-racist, in primary and secondary schools, as well as relevant training inside federal agencies. It's anti-American, yup. Villainizes white people, yup. And indoctrinates children, definitely. And this, let's speak to this again because, again, this is what people are going to hear in the media, is that CRT is just about teaching about past racism. No. As I talked in my last video, you can talk about past racism all you want. I did it all the time as a teacher. But what lens do you view it through? Do you view it through a liberal lens that looks at facts, logic, and reason and uses context and other key components? Or do you just tell a story to push a political narrative through a critical theory lens? Yeah. So that's pretty much it, guys. And so, this is just a huge gaslight. We were told, literally, the news reported, when there was that election in Virginia, critical theory isn't real. Like, critical race theory isn't real. They literally said this on MSNBC. And we've been gaslit this whole time to be like, CRT's not in K through 12 education. It's already there, guys. It's there, and it's growing, and we have to stop it. And, what I wanted to do in this video is just show you guys kind of how they, play with the words. Well, they don't say, we got this from CRT. They say This is from close consultation with culturally responsive teachers. Well, culturally responsive was created by Gloria Ladson-Billing, who is literally the #1 educator for pushing critical race theory in education. Every time you take this Marxist critical consciousness and put it into something else, you just change the name of it. And most of the time they'll put critical on the beginning of it, or cultural or something. So there's like hundreds of these things now, but they all come back to basically the same philosophy of critical theory, which is to divide us along racial lines and make everything about race all the time. Everyone's racist. It can never go away. You must always check your privilege. It will never end. White people can never do anything good for another person of color. We need to discriminate now because of past discrimination. We need to be racist now because of past racism. That's what critical theory is. I believe it's absolutely racist, absolutely evil, and I'm going to keep continuing to teach and educate people on this to keep it out of any American school, but specifically my children will not be taught this Marxist garbage. All right, hope you guys enjoyed the video and learned something. Send this out to anyone you know who is struggling to keep this Marxist indoctrination out of their school system, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.